Hello and good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Jolting Live. My name is David Orban, and you are now following the first episode of a new live streaming series dedicated to jolting technologies. What are jolting technologies? This is a paradigm that I created a few years ago based on my experience with exponential technologies, the previous paradigm. Now, obviously, these are approximations of a massive, complex world that doesn't respect our abstract mathematical models necessarily, but still, we are using these models in order to create an ability that is then potentially adopted by a large number of people in order to understand the world. Jolting technologies is an understanding that the rate of acceleration in technological change is increasing. We have already been accustomed to the acceleration of technological change, for example, through Moore's law that says approximately every 2 years, the power of our computers is going to double. But now we are seeing a shrinking of this doubling rate. The Jolting Live series is going to go through many, many examples of innovations that we believe are illustrating and underlining the phenomena as they are impacting different sectors. The impact is felt on our individual lives, but also the business models of companies, small and large, as well as across all of our society. And understanding the impact is necessary in order to be able to cope with it, rather than being swept aside and finding ourselves powerless. As the world transforms, we will be better equipped in being resilient, in being able to build value, and to stay or improve our adaptability in a world that is evolving, whether we want it or not, unstoppably. Now, you, of course, are very welcome to ask questions, comment, intervene. That is the advantage of being live. I will be able to pick the best comments and show them while we are transmitting and answer them. But of course, there are many, many other ways that we can interact. Jolting Technologies is available on many online platforms. You can follow it on Twitter or LinkedIn. You can like the Jolting Technologies page on Facebook, or the newest of these platforms, the quirky and very, very intriguing and interesting BitCloud. In each of these, you will find posts that illustrate how the rate of change is not only accelerating, but the acceleration is increasing in various fields. The more and most prominent of these are artificial intelligence and quantum computing, but there are also others. And we will go through these examples today so that I can comment on these news that we are sharing in a rapid manner, hopefully illustrating for you the concepts, the importance of understanding, and also being, at least for those who are nerdy and geeky like I am, entertaining to the right degree. So let's start and look at some of the examples that we have posted over the course of the past month or so, and what you can expect in future episodes of Jolting Live is more of these examples that I will comment. Now, do you find examples in your own sources that you believe interestingly illustrate the phenomena of jolting technologies where the rate of acceleration is increasing? Feel free to share it with us, and we will feature your example. And if you give us permission, we will be happy to quote you as the source of that piece of news that we are commenting. One of the very important transformations that we are seeing today is around remote work. This matters because the way that we produce value has profoundly changed. On one hand, a lot of the value that we are creating in the service economy can be created and deployed and transmitted and consumed entirely digitally, where the location of both those that produce the service or the product, the content in general, and those that consume it is irrelevant as long as they both participate in an interoperable network where the content can be made available and can be given a value either via subscription business model, an advertising-based business model, a traditional purchase-based transaction, or in new business models that are emerging. The smartest places are recognizing this. And similarly to how Estonia already a few years ago has been offering digital residency to anyone who wanted to start a business there, even without being physically there or aspiring to acquire citizenship in Estonia, other jurisdictions are taking steps in order to accelerate the transformation of their own workforce, but also to attract talent that participate in this worldwide. So, for example, in Ireland, rural towns are going to be revitalized because workers will be paid in order to move there. And this kind of decentralization, building resilience, and the richer social infrastructure is an interesting way of how Ireland in particular is embracing the move towards remote work. The example of cryptocurrencies and blockchain is often taken as an important new technology that is both empowering and emancipating millions of people around the world, and a threat to the centralized infrastructure that we have built, both financially and in the social organization of the nation state. The threat and opportunity coexist, but they are not equal. Those countries that try to stop Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general find themselves unable to execute on that desire to control. They do really useless and fruitless efforts criminalizing their population without being able to stop the opportunity that Bitcoin and blockchain and cryptocurrencies in general represent. The example that we are showing here is for the country of Morocco, where simultaneously to the banning of cryptocurrencies, the country have seen Bitcoin purchases drastically increasing. Now, there are many ways that digital currencies can be leveraged. And on one extreme, we have the total decentralization of cryptocurrencies. On the other extreme, we have the centralized central bank digital currencies, such as the digital yuan and the forthcoming digital dollar or digital euro, that are guaranteed to be issued by the central banks of the United States and Europe, as the Central Bank of China has already done and is experimenting with in increasing scales involving millions of people. In the middle, there is the possibility of using digital technologies in order to issue and manage the issuance of traditional financial instruments on the blockchain that finds significant advantages in doing so, in reducing the time that it takes to complete this kind of issuance, improving the settlement and the transparency of the operations. Now, the purists among us will scoff and maintain that these examples are not significant or important. However, it has to be recognized that these efforts improve the financial infrastructure, even though they are not as aggressive and all-encompassing as we would want them to be. Another area and another extremely pertinent example of jolting technologies is that of quantum computers. Even the fact that quantum computers have been simmering for so long, literally decades, before becoming a reality, the opportunity of looking at them is there. And actually, it is the illustration of the fact that they are jolting. From a mathematical point of view, the super exponential function will be extremely flat for a long, long time, where very close to zero, ignoring it will be almost irresistible, even more so than an exponential change. And then it will shoot up almost vertically in this graphical representation, surprising even the experts. And that is where quantum computers are, where it is important not only to design them, to deploy them, to experiment with them, but it is important to develop ways to measure their effectiveness, ways to compare one architecture with another, developing benchmarks. We are accustomed to the availability of benchmarks for our computers, and those that buy and upgrade their computers often are totally experienced in finding the right benchmark and making sure that they are not lured in a purchase that is less than optimal by some marketing slogan, but they are able to compare apples to apples and really understand quantitatively what is the benefit of one architecture to or one microprocessor against another. And this value and importance of benchmarks is also very important in quantum computers, which is what the current example that I am showing is illustrating. The big bottleneck, as with many technologies that we are seeing and that are developing, is often not even the ability to invent something or the ability to produce something, but it is the ability of taking advantage of it because of how rapidly these new products and services become available, and the market is simply unprepared to embrace them. And that is why all the effort that goes into making these technologies understandable, making these technologies approachable, are an excellent investment by governments, by companies, because only if the market understands their benefit, it will be able to adopt and deploy those new technologies to the advantage, to the benefit of everyone. So that is why this initiative by D-Wave in coordination with the Canadian government is so precious. It aims to make quantum computing technologies better known around the world. Now, we have been looking at computers for the past 5, 6, 7 decades as if their fundamental architecture were the only possible one that we could imagine. And this kind of bias or blindness around possible alternatives came about because of the very success of electronic computers, the von Neumann architecture of digital computers that was developed in the 40s and that won and replaced and really pushed outside and away every other possible alternative. In the 40s, there were many different approaches for computers, alternative architectures, or even non-digital computers, analog computers that we would program and take advantage of in a completely different way than not what we are doing today. For the benefit of all of us in improving the performance of computers, one very promising area is to move from electronic computers to photonic computers. The advantage is certainly that of a faster computation, but also a drastically reduced energy consumption. If you think about it, we still not have fully established what is the computational capability of the brain. We do know that our computers are not close yet. But when they will be, another comparison will become dominant. And the question will be, what is the power consumption of a computer of a human brain equivalent capacity with a real human brain? And then it will be evident of how efficient the brain is, which for something like 20 watts of power is allowing us to function in all our lower and higher cognitive functions. And so our computers will need to become much more efficient in the use of energy if we want to be able to match or surpass the human um, cognition. And photonic computers are a good way to do so. Not only in hardware, but also in software. We have many interesting innovations and news that come day after day. The ability of artificial intelligence to interpret the world is in all kinds of layers. And it doesn't make a lot of difference for AI if we are talking about the shape of a car on the road, distinguishing it from a cyclist or a pedestrian, or the meaning of words in an audio stream or in typed text. And similarly to how a self-driving car will want to avoid a pedestrian, a software filter could want to avoid the kind of speech that can be triggering to the users that activate that function. So when next time you become angry playing online and you start swearing to your supposed digital enemies, bear in mind that giving that kind of outlet to your emotions may be beneficial to you because it enables you to lower your stress levels. But the other part possibly won't hear anything if they activate the filter that Intel has been developing. AI's deployment is very exciting, and it is joltingly developing, surprising everyone, even experts, in how fast it can deliver results and how profoundly it can change our relationships with the world. However, it is really giving a hard time to regulators that have to try to keep up. It is an almost impossible task because, by definition, the regulators can only formulate rules and policies around something that is well understood. But on the edges, especially with jolting technologies, where the rate of acceleration is increasing and we are constantly exploring new territory, this comprehension is impossible. Nonetheless, the European Union is attempting to develop a series of norms that would, if not guarantee, at least put us on the right path in order to be able to confidently embrace AI technologies as they become more and more powerful. It will be important for the EU to control whether they are right, so that the rules can be evaluated, and if found counterproductive or invaluable, upgraded, evolved, changed, because the rules must serve the population of the EU and not vice versa. The rules by themselves are worthless if they are not achieving the intended purpose. One of the reasons why the power of AI is so surprising is because, contrary to the expectations of many, as the latest models of deep learning approaches are extended further and further, we haven't yet found the moment when the additional investment in increasing their parameter space starts to yield diminishing returns. It has been the case that if you doubled the size of a car engine, or very ambitiously tried to make a car engine 10 times as big as before, you couldn't expect the car to run twice or 10 times faster. There are many reasons for this. For example, a larger engine is not only more powerful, it is also heavier. And the engine has to accelerate not only the car, but itself. The mass of the car plus the mass of the engine eats into the additional power that should have been available for doubling or increasing tenfold the speed, if you naively thought so. In the case of artificial intelligence, we haven't yet found these kinds of natural dampeners, these kinds of natural bottlenecks. And it looks like, at least it has been the case for a long time, not only increasing, doubling, or increasing tenfold, or increasing 100-fold, increasing 1,000-fold, the size of our models yields proportionally better results, but actually these results increase out of proportion. That is the reason why we now are looking at deep learning models with dozens of trillions of parameters. Facebook and Microsoft just a few weeks ago released these models, and I am really curious to see what the applications are going to be. You have already started seeing these applications all across the various platforms. For example, real-time subtitling of videos is now becoming universal. It is on Facebook. Let me try and actually navigate over there to show you if you haven't noticed it before. There you go. This is myself as I am speaking to you now. Already started seeing. And muting the video, I should be able to now show, even though it is a little too small. You can see it in the lower left corner of the video, the real-time captioning that the AI-based system is executing. I will now navigate away from this because it will confuse me as well as you unduly and really to an excessive degree. Let me actually go back kind of here. This is a bit better, and then back to our slides. So this application of real-time captioning can be attributed to the power of these deep learning models, as well as the increasing quality of language translation. But many other applications are awaiting us, and I am looking forward to be able to share the news with you about them. The applications are not limited to what is the interpretation of human signals and human language. AI is now recognizing signals and information from our natural environment, such as, for example, recognizing bird songs. Isn't it wonderful? Or it is um, used to creating new kinds of whiskey blends. Now, admittedly, some of these are marketing stunts, or they could be actually an interesting way of exploring surprisingly novel niches of savory landscapes. And it can be a nice way of experimenting, but also learning about the power of artificial intelligence. The richness of human communication is not only about language, written or spoken, nuanced, but still fairly objective and interpretable in a manner that many, if not all of us, can agree upon. Human communication is also about emotions, which are much more subjective. Both expressing them as well as interpreting them can be quite subjective, quite nuanced, and as a consequence, the ambition of being able to teach a machine to recognize and to reproduce human emotions is quite interesting. And the ability to use art in order to do so is very inventive. Art expresses emotions in a way that humans have been labeling through the descriptions of the artwork, through critiquing the work of artists forever. And as a consequence, we have a corpus of art that we can use in order to train AI engines to associate certain expressions visually with the emotions that they are representing. Now, the next step, I guarantee, is going to be the reverse. You will be able to give a textual description containing emotion descriptors, and the AI engine is going to draw a picture that includes those emotions. You will be able to tell the system to draw a portrait of a happy person, a sad person, an angry person, and combine all kinds of descriptors to very surprising and sometimes novel effects. And then, of course, the debate will be entirely reasonable. Is the creation of that engine novel? Is the creation of that engine artistic? Is that creation truly expressing the understanding of an emotion, or it is just mimicking a superficial analysis and doesn't have any depth to it? These debates will be more and more important as the power of these systems is increasing. Well, and talking about nuance, isn't it one of the hardest tasks, especially for those of us who are somewhat challenged in our ability to read social clues, to realize that someone is joking? They didn't try to offend us. They didn't try to denigrate who we are or our culture or what the subject of our conversation was online. Actually, they were joking. They applied sarcasm, and being able to explicitly label that could be a great help in order to avoid useless arguments degenerating online rather than a better understanding of each other's points of view. The world as we see it is a world that we interpret with our senses. And this interpretation is evident in optical illusions, in hallucinations, in our dreams. We are not necessarily seeing the world as is. We are seeing the world as our senses are able to transmit the signals that we are collecting from the world and the way that our brain is interpreting those signals. Now, the collection and the interpretation can actually happen anywhere. And if that collection and the interpretation is improving our understanding of the world, then all of that is very welcome. Microscopes have, for hundreds of years, been surprising us as they would show us the richness of the world of microbes, bacteria, or even just simply pollen, all the life in a tiny drop of water taken out of a pond, up to today's vital visualizations of viruses and other microscopic structures. And the way that we are looking at microscopic images can be deeply enhanced and made more valuable applying AI systems that can synthesize different sources and different images in a representation that certainly is not the world as is. We don't even know if the expression "the world as is" is meaningful, but it is a representation that is extremely useful. It is actionable. It is rich of meaning. It allows us to understand better and take decisions based on it. And that is where we are today. The understanding of our imagination and the visions with which internally and subjectively we represent the world are our deepest, most human ways of thinking and of structuring information. And computers are now starting to be able to understand and interpret the images that exist in our mind. They are starting to be able to interpret the signals from our brain as we are thinking, for example, of a window, as we are thinking, for example, of an insect, as we are thinking, for example, of an electronic appliance. We are at the very beginning of this application, but it is already astounding. It is pure science fiction as seen with the eyes of someone from a few years ago. And now we are in the process of making it happen. So we are now towards the end of Jolting Live. And I want to share with you the Jolting Technologies courses, which enables you to get deep in each of these. the technologies whose rate of acceleration is increasing. The Jolting Technologies courses can be acquired individually, or you can subscribe to them on a monthly basis, and we are releasing new courses constantly. Let's take a look at one of them, for example, in the course about artificial intelligence. Each of the courses is divided in short video lessons that are both subtitled as well as they are available as a transcription, and they are also available as a very interesting uh, chart of topics that you can explore and inspect in terms of what are the relationships of the various concepts in the course to better understand how to take advantage of it. The course can be consumed in many different ways. And the fact that these videos are short allows you to enjoy them anytime you have a few minutes available. So let's look at one module of the Jolting Technologies course about artificial intelligence that, self-referentially enough, is talking about jolting technologies. Over the course of the past several decades, we have started to become accustomed to the increasing rate of change surrounding us due to improving technologies. In various industries, we have been able to identify and give a name to this. In electronics, we call it Moore's Law. In the field of energy, the improvement in the cost per watt of photovoltaic cells is called Swanson's Law, and it expresses a similar exponential function. To some, it has been a big surprise that it appears that in artificial intelligence, a different kind of outcome is the result of similar processes. Stanford University published a report that highlights how the power of AI was expected to increase 30-fold between 2012 and 2020 over the course of 8 years. Instead, based on the data they collected, what has been observed is that this increase has been 300,000-fold, 10,000 times larger than the expected improvement. Together with additional commentary by OpenAI, a nonprofit that received $1 billion of funding from Microsoft, which is also now building for them one of the world's most powerful specialized AI computers, Stanford University concluded that there are two separate eras in the history of artificial intelligence. Up to 2012, when its power would double according to Moore's Law every couple of years approximately, and since then, when these doublings would be every 3-4 months. But instead of this contrived breaking point that cannot be attributed to anything specific, and it cannot extend generally to the various applications of artificial intelligence that benefit from it, what I proposed in 2019 is that we are in front of a new paradigm based not on a constant acceleration, but on an increasing rate of acceleration. I call a jolting technology a technology whose power changes based on an increasing rate of acceleration. In mathematics, the variable rate of acceleration is called jolting, hence the name of the paradigm. A consequence of this novel interpretation is that we can expect acceleration to further increase. Indeed, the next technology that is going to contribute to it, quantum computing, is already on the horizon. Combining artificial intelligence with quantum computing is going to be one of the most powerful forces on the planet over the course of the next few decades. So that was just a small snippet, a single module of one of the courses, of the many courses available on the website jolting.co, where you can both buy a single course, or you can subscribe for a low monthly payment to all of the courses, existing and future, that we are releasing. There are also dedicated Q&A sessions where you can interact with me as well as with other people in the Jolting Technologies community. And I will welcome your participation, and I will be looking forward to answering your questions. As I said before, Jolting Technologies is available on Facebook, on BitClout, on wait a minute. I have to stop this and go back to what I was showing. Is available on Facebook, is available on BitClout, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and you are welcome to follow Jolting in each of these, as well as, of course, reach out to me directly. I am very easy to find. I am looking forward to see you in the next episode of Jolting Technologies Live.